So y is inversely proportional to q of x. Straight away, y equals to k over x cubed. That's our formula. They gave us information. 7 k over 2 cubed. Therefore, k equals to 7 times 8, which is 56. And we're going to substitute this back inside here. Our updated formula is now y equals to 56 over x cubed. That's for part A. Then part B, they tell us that x is 1/3. So find the value of y. B, when x is equal to 1/3, just substitute in 1/3 power 3. So effectively, we are taking 56 multiplied by 27. So you get 1512. Okay, so that's part B. And part C, find the value of x when y is 7,000. So 7,000 is now 56 over x cubed. Therefore, x cubed is equal to, you can swap the position for your x cubed and your 7,000. What we are actually doing is that we are multiplying both sides by x cubed, then we are dividing both sides by 7,000. So the shortcut, right, actually looks like they are just swapping position only. 56 over 7,000. So if we just want x, then you take the cube root of 56 over 7,000. There's no need to put a plus minus because we are doing a cube root. The plus minus comes only when you're doing a square root or a fourth root, sixth root, eighth root, so on and so forth. Only even roots that we put plus minus. For odd roots, you don't need to put plus minus because the sign will remain the same. Hey, did I make a mistake? Correct. Really? The answer is 105. 56 divided by 7,000. Then cube root. Oh yeah, it's really 105. Such a weird number, but it turns out to be just 105. Okay? Okay, next one. Okay, now exercise 9. Y equals to k over 2x plus 1. So you have to note what our y is inversely proportional to. It is inversely proportional to the entire 2x plus 1. So put that 2x plus 1 in our denominator. Then using these, the difference in value of y. Okay, so there is one particular value of y when x is 0.5. And then there is another value of y when x equals to 2. And then when you take the difference between these two y's, the value is 0.9. Okay, so let's find out what we can do over here. Let's start with when x is equal to 0.5. Okay, so when x equals to 0.5, y equals to k over 2 times of 0.5 plus 1. So this gives us k over 2. Okay, we can call this our y, give it a name, because later we're going to end up with another y. You can call it x1, y1, x2, y2. You can call it, like we've used, xo, yo, xn, yn. But in this case, it's not exactly old and new x. So maybe o and n might not be that intuitive. So what you can do is just use x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so here I will be using y1 for the first pair. So this will be y1 and x1 for the first pair of values. Okay, then for the second pair of values, we are going to get when x equals to, the other value is 2. Our y2 value, because it's a different y, that's why I illustrate it like this. So the same k over 2 times of 2 plus 1 to give us k over 5. Okay, so we have two y values now, and they tell us that the difference between them is 0.9. Now difference, we need to take the bigger number minus the smaller number. Okay, right now, can you tell which is the bigger number, which is the smaller number? Can you? Oh, which one is bigger? Is k over 2 bigger? Are you making an assumption? Are you assuming that k is positive? Right? Because if k is positive there, then you're right, k over 2 is bigger. But if k is negative, then k over 2 is smaller, isn't it? Then did they give any more information? No, they didn't give any more information. So we will just have to choose one of those two and see what happens from there. Let's just go with k. Let's assume that k is positive first. Therefore, k over 2 minus k over 5. And this gives us 0.9. Then you work out your value of k. Okay, so denominator 10, 5k minus 2k over 10 is 0.9. So 3k equals to 9, k equals to 3. Now we have a value of k, and yeah, it is positive. I wonder what happens if we swap it around. If I were to consider k to be negative, I wonder lah. Maybe we can do that when we have time. But for now, k equals to 3, I'm happy with that. Now find the value of y when x equals to negative 0.25. So I'm going to substitute this back into our formula to update it. Now my formula becomes y equals to 3 over 2x plus 1. And I think you know what to do to find the value of y when x equals to negative 0.25. Okay, just do a substitution. So negative 0.25 times 2 plus 1, 3 divided by answer. And we get 6. Okay, that's the correct answer. So you can finish it up yourself. I'm not doing it because I have no space, and I think you can do it by yourself. Okay, when we have time, if you all remember, just remind me to come back to this, and let's just test out what happens when we are doing it the other way around. K over 5 minus k over 2 equals to 0.9, and then we see whether there is any difference in the answer. Okay, so let's continue with exercise number 10. So 7 men can paint a bridge in 15 days. How long would 3 men take? O-level question in 2003. This is an inverse proportion question. Now, if you were to treat it like a direct proportion question, you know, last time when I was a student, I probably would have treated it as a direct proportion. Oh, very simple one. 7 men take 15 days. So 3 men take, then I will do what I was very well trained, divide, then I will do a multiply, and then I get my answer as 15 over 7 times 3. Then get 45 divided by 7, which is 6 and 3 over 7 days. Okay, but if you were to do this, then you have to take a step back. Hey, 7 men, they take 15 days to paint a bridge. Are you sure 3 men can paint it in a shorter duration? So over here, there's a logic error already, right? 7 men take 15 days. You take away 4 men, you can finish the job faster. Cannot be lah. So there is something wrong over here. This is called direct proportion, which is not applicable to this question. Okay, this structure over here that I always like to use is for direct proportion. Not applicable here. We are dealing with inverse proportion. When you have more men, the number of days go down. When you have fewer men, the number of days go up. So it's the opposite. So we call that inverse proportion. Okay, so in order to tackle this, knowing that it is inverse proportion, we can let M be number of men, let D be number of days. Okay, now we define it properly. Then we know that M is equals to K over D. They're inversely proportional. You can choose to write or D equals to M over K over M. K over M. Up to you which one you like to write, because it doesn't matter. They are still inversely proportional with the same K. They are equivalent to each other. Okay, so I'm just gonna stick with this and put in some values. So 7 men, they take 15 days. So now I have the K value. 7 times 15, 105, yes. And we substitute this back into the formula to update it. So M equals to 105 out of D. So in summary, based on this formula, right, it tells us that, hey, if I only have one man, if the left hand side is one man only, the right hand side must also be 1, right? 1 equals to 1, okay? So if there's one man only, right hand side must be equal to 1. Then the value of D must be 105. So one man will take 105 days, poor thing, paying by himself, 105 days. So we need more people to help him so that he can finish it quickly. So in part A, how many days will 3 men take? Okay, so 3 equals to 105 over D. This is a specific value of D. You can call it D3 if you want to for 3 days. Okay, but if you don't want to confuse yourself, you think, okay, I know that this D refers to a specific value. D will now be 105 over 3 to give us 35 days. Okay, so if you have 3 men, it will take 35 days. The next in part B, the bridge was painted in X days. They don't tell you how many days it is, but it is just X days. So write down an expression in terms of X, the number of men needed to paint the bridge. Okay, so number of men, we have our formula. K is 105. Divided by the number of days, they tell us that the D value is now X. So X is a particular value of D. It is a particular value. It's not variable anymore. It doesn't change. It is one value of D. So now my M over here refers to one particular value of the number of men required to complete it in X days. So number of men equals to 105 over X. Okay, to be clear, this M you can call it MX. When there are X number of days required, then I need M number of men. Okay, but you find all these notation very confusing, you want to leave it out, okay, can. You write a statement at the end. Any questions? Need more time to copy? Okay, then move on. Okay, now W inversely proportional to square of D. W equals to K over D square. It is known that W is 50. 50 equals to K over a particular value of D. So DO square. A particular value. I don't want to leave it as D because I have already substituted in values for W and D. So call it DO. Okay, so based on this, same thing, we find the value of K, which is 50 DO square. We put it back into our formula, and now we update it to become W equals to 50 DO square over D square. Remembering that the numerator is a constant, the K value is a constant, that DO is a constant value. The D at the bottom is a variable, they are different. Then now, find the value of W when this value of D is double. That means the O, this value of D means the DO lah. And we've got to double it. The new value, W new. The new W is 50 D square, DO square, that is our O value of D over there, or constant value now, divided by the new D, and we need to square it. I'm going to put a new D inside and I'm going to square it. Well, the new D is actually double of the OD. So 2DO. And we square it. Okay, then last lesson, I show you that I wanted you to highlight this portion. We are actually squaring the entire value for D. In this case, the value of D is 2DO, not just DO. Okay, so let's continue. So 50 over 4 to give us 12.5. So that's our new value for W, 12.5. Okay, so the square of the denominator, your 2 becomes 4. And that's why we have 50 divided by 4. Next one. A spot in a room is illuminated by a lamp. So it turns out the illumination, the brightness of a lamp depends on the distance you are from it. The nearer you are, the brighter it is. The further you are, the dimmer it is. So the intensity of the light is inversely proportional to the square of the d, or of distance. So I equals to k over d squared. You notice that this type of formula occurs very frequently. It is naturally occurring. Okay, there are forces of attraction, your gravitational force, your magnetic force, your electrostatic force, your illumination, intensity, even the sound. When I talk, the nearer it is, the louder it is. The further you are, the softer it is. But it is related by, it is inversely proportional to the square of the distance, not just the distance only. So it's something that happens naturally all the time. Okay, so so part A is done already. Now part B, at a certain distance d. Okay, so now they're telling us that very unfortunate. So you see, this is actually not an O-level question. At a certain distance d, this part now becomes confusing. I would change the question to become D1, okay? Okay, please change this to at a certain distance d1, because they cannot say at a certain distance d when the formula itself is already d. Okay, so d is supposed to be a variable. Then now when they say a certain distance d, it should be d1 lah. Okay, so I can call it do or d something. Now the intensity is 60. So since I call this d1, then this I will be I1. Okay, so that they form a pair. What is the intensity when the distance is now doubled? Okay, so let's substitute them into the formula. I1, which is given to be 60, is equal to k over d1 squared. Here we have substituted in values already. So k will be my 60 multiplied by d1 squared. And then I substitute this back inside here. Our new formula, our updated formula is I equals to 60 d1 squared over d squared. Normally you would have seen me use do, okay, for the O value. But typically at questions they don't call it do lah. They probably will call it d1. That's why I wanted to amend it that way. Okay, now they say that the intensity, they want to find it when the distance is now doubled. Okay, so intensity new. So we had the original reference one, now we have a new one. You can call it I2 if you want to. But I call it, I stick to my convention. So 60 d1 square, that is the constant value that we found out, divided by the new distance squared. Now what is the new distance? It is actually double of the old distance. So 2d1 over here, the old distance. And this gives us 60 over 4. That's 15. So the new intensity is 15 units. Whatever the units is. Do you know the units for the SI unit for intensity of light? Anybody, you got memorize or how many SI units are there? It's 7. I can't remember, it's been so long. I think there are 7. And one of them is the intensity of light. You all need to know for exams. Okay, next one. When the spot is 20 cm away. So now I have another distance. Another D. What shall we call it? Shall we call it I don't know, D2, D3? Up to you lah. As long as you don't just leave it as D, because D itself is a variable. Another D, the intensity is 90. Find the intensity when the spot is 30 cm from the lamp. Do we need those information? Okay, let's substitute them in. Let's call it I2. Since it was not used, this I2 is my 90. Equals to K. Do we have a value of K? Should we treat this as a separate question? Yeah, I think we should. Okay, so we have another K over... It is actually the same K, but we are not comparing with this 60 units anymore. That's why we are going to replace this K of 60 d1 square with something else. and that is found by 20 cm. Okay, so 20 square. Oh, we can actually find the value of K. So 90, that is our second intensity, equals to K, which is a constant, divided by distance squared. Therefore, hey, now we have the value of K, which is 90 times 400. So that's 36000. And of course, I'm going to substitute into the wherever the formula is up there. So okay, very happy now. 36000 over d squared. This is the complete formula now. Given distance, you find intensity. Given intensity, you can find distance. So now, find the intensity when the spot is 30 cm. 36000, 30 square. So divided by 900, you get 40. So this is the intensity when it is 30 cm away from the lamp. Anybody needs more time? Next page. Okay, this one is simple. X and y connected by the equation y equals to k over root x plus 5. So in other words, y inversely proportional to square root x plus 5. Y is inversely proportional to square root x plus 5. And then we've got a pairs of information over here. Calculate the value of k, p, and q. K, p, and q. So these are corresponding values. We should see them in pairs like this. And then, with this formula given to us, in this formula there are 3 unknowns. Out of the 3 unknowns, 2 are variables, 1 is a constant. The constant is k. Okay, so there are 3 unknowns in the formula. Now the 3 pairs of coordinates given, only the yellow one is complete. So we would want to substitute the yellow pair of coordinates into our equation. So sub -1 and 30 inside. We've got 30 equals to k over square root x is -1 plus 5. So we have our k value as 5 minus 1 is 4, root 4 is 2, 2 times 30, 60. K is 60. Our updated formula is now y equals to 60 over root x plus 5. It's our updated formula. Okay, so now to find the value of p. P is a y value. P is the y value when x is equal to 59. So substituting 59 to get a y value. So sub x equals to 59. Y equals to P equals to 60 over square root 59 plus 5. So divided by 8, 60 divided by 8, 7.5. That's the next one. And finally the value of Q. So sub y equals to 12. So our x value, which is Q, oh no, we cannot do it that way. So when we sub y equals to 12, we get 12 equals to 60 over square root x plus 5. So make x the subject. Okay, we do so by multiplying both sides. But if you remember what I said just a while ago, we can actually kind of swap the position for this 12 and your square root x plus 5 to give us square root x plus 5. 60 over 12, which is 5. So x plus 5 being 25, x equal 20. We may not be able to finish this out notes today. Maybe we'll leave the last page. But then you see that the types of questions are all the same. Is this the last page already? I still have one, yeah. Okay? Anybody needs more time for this? Okay, if you're done, look at the next question. Start forming the equation. Okay, do you have your first equation? D equals to K over W. Okay, then substitute lah. 6 workers take 4 days. 4 days, K over 6. 6 workers take 4 days. And now you have the value of K. Substitute inside. So our updated formula, D 24 over W. Part A done. Part B, number of days for 8 workers to assemble. D goes to 24 over 8, 3 days. And then part C, number of workers for 2 days. 24 over W. So W will be 12 workers. One last question. Think you'll do yourself. Okay, try yourself.